It is going to be a busy weekend for Penn State affiliated wrestlers out in Las Vegas for the U.S. Open. So just how many of them can we expect to take home a gold medal?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is right. You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling and the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. As always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day, the number one Penn State sports podcast out there. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, talking about the U.S. Open in Las Vegas. It's already kicked off, but the men's freestyle is going to take place over the course of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we're talking senior level, U20, U17, all the affiliated Penn State wrestlers that will be competing this weekend. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Be a part of the conversation. We're going to begin with the senior level and then make our way to U20, U17. Yes, there is a U17 wrestler affiliated with Penn State that is recent commit, Jayden James. But starting at the senior level, we'll work our way up here, 57 kilos all the way to 125. And I know there's not a Penn State wrestler there, but just to go through the senior level, it's not as crowded as the U20 level with everybody and their brother essentially entering into that tournament. But to begin with Luke Lilledahl and Marcus Blaze, respectively, Lilledahl and Blaze are both number one overall seeds. That just talks about the pedigree. That just talks about how they've already emerged onto the wrestling scene, that they're not veterans of the sport necessarily, and they're the favorites. They are expected to win their respective weight classes. So at 57 kilos, Luke Lilledahl, what is on the line here? Of course, an opportunity to wrestle in Final X, but a guaranteed matchup with former Iowa Hawkeye in terms of folk style. He still wrestles for the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. Lilledahl is set, if he wins, would ultimately face Spencer Lee at Final X in June. It's a crowded 57 kilogram weight class here. Lilledahl is the anticipated favorite. I don't know if I'd necessarily say that he's the overwhelming favorite, but as a U20 world champion, just taking third at NCAAs, so Lilledahl should be the favorite here at 57 kilos. Now let's go to Marcus Blaze, 61 kilograms. This isn't so one-sided. I feel like anybody could emerge at the 61 kilo weight class, and it's crazy to think that Marcus Blaze has been dubbed as the favorite over the likes of Dayton Fix. I mean, he's the number one seed, but even before the pre-seeds came out, Flow Wrestling, for example, said that Blaze should be considered a favorite over the likes of Dayton Fix, Nishan Garrett, Seth Gross, Austin DeSanto, and Jax Forrest is in this group. The future of wrestling, potentially, now affiliated with Oklahoma State after committing to David Taylor. Nico Megaludis, former Penn State wrestler, Pitt Wrestling Club member, is in there. And then Nathan Tomasello. So that matchup right out of the gate, Tomasello versus Marcus Blaze, is going to be one that's extremely exciting. Fireworks right out of the gate. So can he defeat a Dayton Fix in a hypothetical championship? Maybe. He's done it before. He's defeated Dayton Fix before. So Blaze, classified as the favorite here, I feel like this is a roulette wheel. You could spin it and get anybody out of this group at 61 kilos. Then moving on to 65 kilograms. And again, this is just a general overview so that we can include everybody in this conversation to give you an idea of what to expect over the course of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 65 kilograms, Joey McKenna is going to be the number one overall seed. Beau Bartlett is the 3 seed in this weight class. Death, taxes, and a potential Jesse Mendez versus Beau Bartlett semifinals matchup. You betcha. Jesse Mendez is the number 2 seed in this weight class. So Mendez and Bartlett are on a crash course potentially. I am not ruling out anything as far as the other talented wrestlers that are in this weight class, but I expect McKenna to be in the championship, Mendez and Bartlett to make it to the semifinals where they will meet. And I am eager to see, how does Bartlett adjust against Mendez on the freestyle circuit? Because we've seen them go toe-to-toe in folk style. And I know that Jesse Mendez ended up being, at the end of the day, the series went back and forth. Every time one wrestler would get a victory, the other one would get one. They would trade punches left and right metaphorically here. And Mendez, I think, is one of the future faces of freestyle wrestling for the United States. I don't like to admit that here, being that he's the Ohio State guy and Beau Bartlett's the Penn State guy here. But Bartlett does have a preference for freestyle. Most people are probably going to joke about that because, well, there's passivity and Beau Bartlett's not an offensive guy. It doesn't matter. You can still have a strong defensive game plan and a strong defensive prowess at the freestyle circuit in this case. So I am eager to see how these two match up when it is not folk style and who would ultimately win there between Mendez and Bartlett at 65. Nobody is there at 70 kilos as far as Penn State affiliated wrestlers, Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. I would think that now I know that he's the second pre-seed, but I think Yanni Diakomahalis would be the favorite here at the US Open. Just my 2 cents. I really do like Bryce Andonian as a 6th seed, but that's a crowded weight class as well. 74 kilos. This is the one that I think everybody can circle this hypothetical finals match because it's a rematch of the NCAA finals. Mitchell Mesenbrink is talked about as one of those future faces of freestyle wrestling. So I gave that dub to Jesse Mendez. I think the same thing applies here to Mitchell Mesenbrink as well. So I'm talking about world championships, multiple. I'm talking about Olympic medals too. Mitchell Mesenbrink is going to have to go through David Carr to start that path. Mesenbrink lost the last time they met. We remember that pretty well on this channel, that Mesenbrink just wasn't aware of the clock. It wasn't a talent issue or a separation of technique, simply awareness. And I think Mesenbrink has learned from that point in time that you just got to be aware of the clock because Mesenbrink was right there with Carr. And if he had thought that they weren't going to go to sudden victory, I think Mesenbrink pushes the pace at the end of that NCAA finals match. So these two will be on a crash course. We know that Mesenbrink likes to push the pace here. We'll see how Carr ultimately adjusts. Something I listened to Keegan O'Toole. He did an interview with Flow Wrestling to talk about that hypothetical matchup. And he mentioned it specifically that Mesenbrink is just going to go after Carr, and Carr's either going to have to match the intensity or just try to fend all of it off. But that's where the passivity and being on the shot clock and everything else, where it's going to play into the favor of Mitchell Mesenbrink. This is still a very crowded 74 kilogram class. This is a very crowded one. Not the only Penn State affiliated wrestler, if we're counting Terrell Barraclaw in this as well, transferring to Utah Valley from Penn State. He is the 6th seed in here. Quincy Monday's a 3 seed. Jarrett Jacques is the 4 seed. Peyton Hall of West Virginia is the 5 seed here. This is a very talented 74 kilogram class. Give me Carr and Mesenbrink in the finals, and I got to imagine that I think Mesenbrink gets revenge. I genuinely do. Maybe that's the Penn State podcast host part of it, but I really do think that Mesenbrink is going. But Carr has been training freestyle a lot more actively than Mesenbrink in this case. It's the same thing with Lilledahl. It's just his forte. This is his preference. 79 kilograms, nobody for Penn State Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, but Dean Hamady. This is where I would have liked to have seen Levi Haynes, because I think this is an open 79 kilogram weight class. Dean Hamady is the number 2 seed here. Would have been maybe a hypothetical matchup in there between Haynes and Hamady, but Evan Wicks, the 1 seed, Kennedy Monday's the 3 seed, Danny Bronigal's the 3 seed, Carson Harchla of Ohio State is the 5 seed in here. So I really do feel like this is more of a wide open weight class as compared to others. Now we get to 86 kilos. And this is where Kyle Dake has jumped not 1, but 2 weight classes. And he's talked about that decision. Part of that, I think, has to do with the training aspect of it as well. Being able to cut weight is really difficult, especially as you get older. So Dake moving up to 86, and this isn't new territory for him. Dake has wrestled 86 kilos in international tournaments before, because the immediate assumption might be is that, well, this isn't his weight class, so Zahid Valencia is probably going to win this one. Not necessarily no problem, but should be considered the favorite, right? I don't think so. I still think Kyle Dake gets it done. against Zahid Valencia, but that will be one of the most intriguing hypothetical finals matchups. I think David Carr versus Mitchell Mesenbrink, Kyle Dake versus Zahid Valencia, because legacy is on the line there. At least Carr and Mesenbrink, whoever comes out on the shorthand, the short end of the stick, ultimately has a chance to rebuild their legacy. Zahid Valencia is in the middle of his prime, going out of it, right? And Kyle Dake's towards the end of his career. So we'll see what direction this weight class goes in. Chance Marsteller is in there as well. Parker Kukaisen's an intriguing one, of course, Northern Iowa. Rocco Welsh, I don't want to forget about him because he's newly transferred into Penn State. Not affiliated with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club as of right now, but Rocco Welsh is in there. This is just such a top-heavy weight class. Kyle Dake, Zahid Valencia. Could Welsh pull the upset against Kukkaisen? It would personally surprise me. I'm honestly even surprised that Rocco Welsh is wrestling at 86 kilos. He said that he was going to be training at 79. So maybe that's because since he's not with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, that he's just going to stay at 86 for the time being. But I do think I'm eager to see how he adjusts on a stage like this and against competition like this when he's going to have to go up against Kukkaisen to get to Kyle Dake. He would have to go through Kukkaisen, Dake, and then most likely Valencia. It's difficult for me to see Rocco Welsh winning in that weight class. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, there's still a couple more weight classes to go through at the senior level before we get through a crowded U20 field. We'll talk about that and more coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you will get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. You'll love using FanDuel because it makes betting easy, makes betting so easy. Whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists to rebounds, you name it, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite players and on your favorite player props. Plus, even after the game tips off, you can still get your bets in. You can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today. That is $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, that is FanDuel.com. And remember, still on the way, we're going to talk about that U20 field and all the current and future Penn State wrestlers that are going to be competing this weekend. Let's get back to the senior level. Just briefly, 92 kilograms. I think that Trent Hidley, being the number one overall pre-seed, should be the favorite at 92 kilos. Maybe experts will disagree with me, but when I look at this group, nobody really jumps off the page like they do in other weight classes, just how deep an 86 kilogram class or a 61 in a sense when you compare the two. So this should be Trent Hidley's weight class to lose. I am interested to see an Aiden Sinclair, who's wrestling over at Missouri. Dustin Plott's going to be in this, so he's Cowboy RTC with David Taylor. So those are just some of the names that stand out at 92 kilos. I don't know that any of them will defeat Trent Hidley, but Sinclair certainly could. He is the future at that weight class, potentially. Certainly has a lot of potential. 97 kilos, I don't know that I need to spend a lot of time on this one. And if I should even spend any time on it at all, not to be disrespectful, but Kyle Snyder is the overwhelming favorite here, as he should be. He should have no issues here winning gold at the U.S. Open. Masuma Endine over at now newly transferred. He's a former multi-Division III champion. He's now transferred into Iowa. He's the 3 seed here. So I'm eager to see how he will do in this tournament, but nobody's defeating Kyle Snyder at the U.S. Open. And then at 125, same thing. There isn't an affiliated Penn State Nittany Lion Wrestling Club member here. So at 125, watching for Wyatt Hendrickson, who is fresh off that Gable Steveson upset. He is the number 2 overall seed. Hayden Zilmer, I think, it still might be considered a favorite here at this point in time. He's part of the Gopher Wrestling Club. But give me Wyatt Hendrickson. I think Wyatt Hendrickson, for most people, at least more people, after that Gable Steveson victory, are going to have him dubbed as the favorite at 125. I expect him to win. because he's going to have all of that momentum. There is a David Taylor element. I'd be lying if I didn't say that there isn't a David Taylor effect, because Dean Hamady took a step forward and Wyatt Hendrickson took a step forward after they could never really just get over the hump, and they did at Oklahoma State in a year's time. I'm also eager to see Nick Feldman, Ohio State wrestler. He's the 4th seed here. I wonder, maybe is he ready to possibly upset a Zilmer if they happen to meet in that semifinal, and then he moves on to face Wyatt Hendrickson hypothetically. I wouldn't bank on it, but I do want to see, because Nick Feldman is going to be one of the favorites at heavyweight going into the NCAA season for 25 and 26. Okay, now let's move on to the U20 tournament. These are Penn State wrestling commits, current Penn State wrestlers. The future of Penn State wrestling will be on display this weekend. So starting with the lighter weights at 61 kilos, you have an incoming true freshman with Nate Desmond and Sam Herring, a member of the class of 2026, teammates with Beau Bartlett over at Bishop McCourt High School. I do find it a little intriguing that Desmond is wrestling at 61. I thought he'd wrestle at 57 and maybe this still might be the case, that he could be the answer at 125. I do think Luke Lilledahl ultimately bumps up to 133, maybe in his junior season, maybe his senior season, who knows? I just know that he won't be able to hold 125 forever. So Desmond competing at 61, maybe this is just a freestyle thing and he cuts back down for folk style. Sam Herring at 61 kilos alongside him there. 65 kilos, Dalton Perry, member of the class of 2025, is going to be wrestling. All eyes are going to be on PJ Duke at 70 kilograms. PJ Duke, I think, would be not necessarily some people might consider him an overwhelming favorite, but he's certainly going to be one of the consensus favorites at 70 kilograms. Also at 70 kilograms, Brock Wise is going to be competing. He is a current Penn State wrestler. Speaking of current Penn State wrestlers, Joe Seeley, 74 kilograms. I didn't realize there was a ton of chatter around Seeley possibly transferring out of Penn State. I understand it. I understand the discourse, because there isn't a clear path for him to get on the map between Tyler Kasak at 157. Now you add PJ Duke around there as well in those middleweights at one. He can wrestle at any of 57, 65, 74. You get my point. So Seeley's still in the mat room, but I don't think there are any concerns that he's supposed to transfer out. I just know that was maybe a talking point among Penn State wrestling fans, which is understandable, because Tyler Kasak, Mitchell Mesenbrink are not going anywhere. And then do you bulk up to 174? We'll see. But for freestyle purposes, I got to imagine that Joe Seeley is going to be one of the favorites at 74 kilos in his own right. At 79 kilograms, William Hankel is entered in, member of the class of 2025, another phenomenal pound-for-pound recruit, one of the best in the nation. Penn State is absolutely just loaded at these tournaments here. And then the Mirasola twins are entered in, 92 kilos, Connor, and at the heavyweight 125, Cole. So now we get to see on a big stage, not just the Southern Scuffle. And the Southern Scuffle is a really good tournament to get that assessment from. I know Zach Ryder is part of Oklahoma State now, but Ryder won at the Southern Scuffle, and both Mirasola twins took gold at the Southern Scuffle as well, just to show that they are on track with their development. But these tournaments, it is freestyle, gives you an idea of how far along is Connor? How far along is Cole, especially with the weight change? Because Cole, who has been wrestling for his high school career around 210, 215, 220, to see if he can really settle into that heavyweight spot, 125 kilos on the freestyle circuit. I'm eager to see how Cole does with the weight adjustment and how far along Connor Mirasola is, because I keep going on the record that if you're going to allow Josh Barr to cut back down to 184, it means that Connor Mirasola needs to be ready to take over at 197. And this is an awesome indicator of whether he's on the right track or if he's further off. Same thing, because people have concerns about Cole Mirasola as an everyday starter at heavyweight for Penn State next season. So remember, Greg Kirkfleet went through the same kind of development. So Cole Mirasola is not going to be an instant title contender right out of the gate. It's going to be a progression, because he is bulking up. He was closer to, again, he was wrestling around 210, 215, and now he's got to be able to compete, and he's not going to go all the way up to 285. But I hope people understand my point here is that there is an adjustment period specifically for Cole Mirasola. So If I have anybody circled this weekend as far as who I'm the most excited to see watch wrestle, I think at the senior level, definitely a Marcus Blaze. Marcus Blaze is in, if we're going back to the senior level briefly, Marcus Blaze, I have him circled. Rocco Welsh as well, because he is up to 86 kilos. He's not wrestling at 79 like he had said. And then the Mirasola twins and Joe Seeley as well. Joe Seeley, because he didn't really get to wrestle all that much his true freshman year, had dealt with the injury, had a couple of spot starts, and didn't maybe necessarily look like himself because he was shaking off some rust. But really, the Mirasola twins, they have a lot of expectations. They have a lot of anticipation in general. Are they the real deal? This is a weekend where we start to get answers to some of those questions. Now, coming up next, we are going to go rapid fire through the U20 tournament. A lot of names are entered, but which ones stand out? Which Penn State wrestlers, which commits could potentially take home gold and qualify themselves for the World Team Trials? That is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices with no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite TV shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Now you get affordable and portable gaming. You can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. And if you already have a console, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easy to travel with, allowing you to take your favorite games wherever you plug in. So head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Now, to wrap up the show in its entirety, we will finish with Jaden James, as he is the new commit to the Penn State class of 2026, flipped over from Virginia Tech. He is wrestling in U17, so we'll briefly discuss him and what to expect there. But we're going to go very quickly to try to address all these weight classes in this U20 tournament and who stands out. So at 57 kilos, there is not a wrestler that is affiliated to Penn State, but at 61 kilograms, Nate Desmond is there and ready to go, as well as Sam Herring. This is a crowded weight class. They all are going to be. I think Aaron Seidel stands out to me. If you don't know about Aaron Seidel, he's committed to Virginia Tech, but he is one of the most decorated Pennsylvania high school wrestlers ever. 206 career victories, 3 state titles, and came in 2nd place his senior season. Could not become a 4-time champion. That's going to be a tough one to overcome, but I think winning 206 times, he just stands out to me a ton in this weight class. Nate Desmond is not going to be an overwhelming favorite, but he's certainly somebody that can finish at the top. I would not discount Desmond here. Mason Gibson's also in this weight class too, former Penn State wrestling commit, now over at Rutgers. So I think those are the 3 wrestlers that immediately stand out. Sam Herring certainly has an uphill battle at 61 kilos, but I don't think it's his time exactly at this very given moment. But eager to see how he does against more veteran competition, against older competition here. Then let's move on to 65 kilograms. This is Beau Bartlett's weight class. So Dalton Perry is in here, and as much as I want to see Dalton Perry do well, I don't know that he's going to win at the U.S. Open. Beau Bartlett is who most people are going to pick. But if you're not picking Beau Bartlett, you're probably picking Daniel Zepeda. And if you're not picking Zepeda, you're probably picking Sergio Vega, who's committed to, go figure, David Taylor and Oklahoma State. But then there's also the college wrestlers, Luke Stanich, Pearson Manville, who's from State College Area High School. This is another loaded weight class, but it's a very top heavy for this weight class. I'm going to take Beau Bartlett here. But if Zepeda and Vega certainly have a stake in this, even though most people are going to say it's Beau Bartlett, Luke Standich could easily win. Zepeda could win. I was impressed with Vega at the Pennsylvania versus the United States Wrestling Challenge, and Vega impressed, certainly. I don't know how Dalton Perry will exactly do here with just how crowded it is. 70 kilograms, already talked about it. PJ Duke is considered a favorite here, and he would be my choice to win at 70 kilos. Landon Robideau has been circled as somebody that would upset him in this case. So PJ Duke's the favorite. If there's anybody that's going to upset him, it's probably Robideau. I do want to see how does a Melvin Miller do, because he's already projected as one of the top prospects in the class of 2027, if we can believe that. And he's wrestling here at U20. Colin Rath, Colin Gage, other wrestlers that are from the state of Pennsylvania, just to know about. But this is a crash course, I think, between PJ Duke and Landon Robideau. Then at 74 kilos, you might get a crash course between Ladarian Lockett, D. Lockett, who's committed to Oklahoma State, and Joe Seeley. I would very much like to see that matchup between those two. And Joe Seeley, this is a prime opportunity for him to remind everybody just how talented he is. He was one of the top recruits, pound for pound, in the nation. It was either him or Luke Lilledahl at the top. Zach Ryder was up there too. The Mirasola twins were as well. But if you looked at the top three, Joe Seeley and Luke Lilledahl were the consensus at the top in that class of 2024. D. Lockett's one of the top pound for pound recruits in the class of 2025. So you might get a Penn State versus Oklahoma State battle here. Give me Joe Seeley, because I really do think people may have forgotten, since he wasn't showcased in his true freshman season. He looked a little sluggish because he was overcoming that surgery, but still came back to wrestle briefly in his true freshman season. I like Seeley here. I think he's most likely at some point, depending on the seeding. I don't know how the seeding's going to look at this point in time when I'm recording this show. But Seeley, if they're matched up on opposite ends of the bracket, it could be Lockett versus Seeley in the championship, which will be one for the ages. 79 kilograms, William Henkel should be considered a favorite here. Penn State Wrestling Commit. That's just how loaded they are. When you think about the future, okay, what is Levi Haynes? Levi Haynes at 174. What happens there? 165. Eventually, Mitchell Mesenbrink moves on. But it's those weight classes at 174, 184, and you just have the likes of a William Henkel here, Asher Cunningham within the room, even though he's not at this tournament. I'm just talking about those as you start to get into the upper weights. Henkel's another one that just adds to the power that Penn State has. And he should be considered a favorite here at 79 kilos. When I look at some of the other names, Brock Mantanona, he's a brother of Beau Mantanona of Michigan. So just not as many names jump out on the page, from the page here. So I will take William Henkel as one of the favorites in this case. Then we go up to 86 kilograms. There are no affiliated Penn State wrestlers, Nittany Lion Wrestling Club members here. Max McAnally has entered into this weight class. I would be shocked if it's anybody else other than Max McAnally winning at the U.S. Open. 92 kilograms. Okay, we're up to the Mirasola twins. Connor Mirasola, I think, is one of the favorites here. The Sasso brothers, Sonny Sasso is entered in from Virginia Tech. There are some talented wrestlers in this 90 kilogram weight class. Cody Merrill of Oklahoma State is in here as well. Connor Mirasola very well could win this one, and it's going to be telling. Okay, he just picked up that Pan Am championship victory, won gold there in Mexico. Can he follow it up in Las Vegas with a quick turnaround to win gold? I'm taking Connor Mirasola to impress at 92 kilos. Then at 97 kilograms, there's nobody there affiliated with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club or Penn State Wrestling. So we move up to 125, and Cole Mirasola will wrap up the tournament. He's going to be a favorite as well, and I'm eager to see the adjustments that he's made to being a full-time heavyweight. But the future of college wrestling, the future of heavyweight wrestling is going to be on display here. Drayshawn Ross, one of the top recruits in the class of 2026, committed to Oklahoma State, is in here as well. Kobe Merrill is in this. He's one of the top-ranked wrestlers as well in the nation. And then Michael Mako, who just committed to Iowa, is also in this group. Any of these guys could win. I'm going to favor Cole Mirasola here because he has the collegiate experience, but Ross, Mako, These guys are all insanely talented, but I think Cole Mirasola will impress as well, and it's going to be that experience at the collegiate level that is the difference. Now we'll finish up with Jaden James just briefly. He's wrestling in the U17 freestyle tournament. He's at 71 kilos. He's one of the top-ranked wrestlers in the country for the class of 2026. Penn State was able to flip his commitment away from Virginia Tech, and he's already won 2 U16 freestyle championships. He won a junior nationals in Fargo. This guy's the real deal. He just continues to add to the talent in Penn State's mat room. So I got to imagine that James is going to be the favorite here. If he's already winning U16 freestyle tournaments, then he really shouldn't have many issues competing at a U17 now, should he? So that's another Penn State affiliated wrestler to keep an eye on. All of them at the senior level, U20, U17. It's going to be a busy weekend, as I mentioned, in Las Vegas. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. So a lot that we covered here, just a general overview of what to expect at the 3 tournaments with Penn State affiliated wrestlers. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Thank you so much for the support on the show. If you are new to the channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and wherever you get your podcasts, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day.